What's up, everyone? Welcome to the April 19th edition of DraftKings Tournament Plays presented by PrizePicks. I'm your host, Adam Scherer. You can follow me on Twitter at ShipMyMoneyDFS. And as a reminder, you get one free month of Awesemo plus Platinum when you sign up and make a deposit at PrizePicks. Be sure to use the code Awesemo to receive a 100% first deposit bonus up to $100. We're going to take a look at the top tournament stacks and top tournament pitchers on DraftKings tonight using the top stacks tool and top pitchers tool on the Awesemo.com website. Starting with the top stacks, coming in at number 3, the Washington Nationals have a 1%, are projected for 1% aggregate ownership with a 5% chance of being the top scoring stack. They are facing Tyler Gilbert. They have a 4.7 implied run total. Just not much ownership going to Washington here. It's not a great offense, but a decent matchup against Gilbert. He's a bit of an unknown, not a top prospect or anything like that. Limited sample size last season with Arizona. And you do have at least a couple of very strong hitters in this lineup, or at least we would expect. With Juan Soto, Nelson Cruz, and Josh Bell, you get a catcher option in the middle of the lineup in Keibert Ruiz. So there is still some upside here, even though overall it's not a very good offense and very little ownership coming in. Number 2, the Toronto Blue Jays projected for 3% aggregate ownership, a 6% chance of being the top stack on the slate. They have a difficult matchup tonight against Nathan Evalde and the Boston Red Sox. They only have a 4.4 implied run total. Evalde has been a very solid pitcher since last season, throws hard, has good stuff. He's only allowed 0.89 home runs per 9 innings. He's got a 3.45 xFIP, but just not a lot of ownership coming into a Toronto team that does still have a lot of power. Anytime you have George Springer, Bo Bichette, Vlad Guerrero, Lourdes Gurriel, and in a lineup you have a lot of power, and then there's some cheaper guys to round out the lineup as well. Guys like Matt Chapman, Zach Collins, etc. So still a very high upside offense in Fenway Park. We know that there's plenty of power upside there, especially for right-handed hitters in particular. And the Jays have a lot of them. And then the number 1 tournament stack on DraftKings, looking to the other side of that game, the Boston Red Sox are projected for 4% aggregate ownership with a 7% chance of being the top scoring stack. They have a 5.1 implied run total tonight against Yusei Kikuchi. Kikuchi is another pitcher that really isn't bad. He has struck out 24.2% of hitters since the start of last season. He has a 3.89 xFIP, but he has had some issues with home runs. He's allowed 1.57 home runs per 9 innings. Now he's pitching in Fenway Park tonight, which does play up right-handed power. He's a left-handed pitcher, and you have plenty of right-handed power on the Red Sox with Kike Hernandez, Xander Bogaerts, JD Martinez, Trevor Story. Rafael Devers is a lefty, but obviously just a really good overall hitter. So with a ton of ownership going to the Coors Field game tonight, it lowers the ownership on Boston, makes them look like a very appealing stack in tournaments. Now, for the top 3 tournament pitchers on DraftKings, starting at number 3, Framber Valdez is projected for 9% ownership with a 15% chance of being a top 2 scoring pitcher. He's facing the Los Angeles Angels. We know the Angels are a team that have 2 of the best hitters in baseball at the top of the order in Shohei Ohtani and Mike Trout. You have a very good Anthony Rendon as well. But then the lineup really drops off. When Taylor Ward is likely to be your 4 hitter, that's not the most dangerous lineup. Towards the bottom of the order, you start getting some strikeouts as well with guys like Joe Adell, who strikes out at a very high rate. Valdez isn't a great strikeout pitcher. Since the start of last year, he's only struck out 21.9% of hitters, but he does have a 3.58 xFIP. He's extremely good at keeping the ball on the ground and limiting hard contact. And while you don't get the same sort of strikeout upside from him, his ability to limit hard contact, keep the ball on the ground, it does help him pitch a bit more efficiently since he's not using as many pitches to get strikeouts. Therefore, you can sort of make up for some of the strikeout upside, at least by potentially getting an extra inning out of Valdez before he gets taken out because he's thrown too many pitches. Number 2, Nathan Evalde, projected for 8% ownership with a 16% chance of being a top 2 scoring pitcher. Mentioned Toronto when we talked about the stacks, but they do only have a 4.4 implied run total. Evalde's $9,500. He has a 25.8% strikeout percentage since last season, 3.45 xFIP, as I mentioned before. He's a very good pitcher. And Toronto, while they do have a dangerous lineup, there are still some strikeouts in it. And the bottom of the order isn't quite as strong as it probably will be later in the year. Zach Collins has some power. He's expected to hit 6th, but he's someone that basically was a failed prospect with the White Sox and then now is trying to revitalize his career with Toronto. Santiago Espinal, not a great power hitter. Calvin Biggio is not normally going to be in their starting lineup, but they're dealing with some injuries right now. So if Evalde's able to navigate his way through the spring Springer, Bichette, Guerrero, Gurriel portion of this lineup, he's likely to be able to have some success against the bottom of the order. And number one, Walker Bueller, projected for 7% ownership with a 17% chance of being a top 2 scoring pitcher. He's $10,700 in a relatively difficult matchup against the Atlanta Braves. Atlanta does still only have a 3.7 implied run total, however, mostly because Walker Bueller is just really good. He's struck out 25.7% of hitters since the start of last season. He has a 3.6 xFIP, just a good pitcher where you are paying a premium for his talent, but there's a few pitchers on this slate that are pulling a lot of ownership, and as a result, Bueller's going a little bit overlooked. It's pretty nice when you can be contrarian by rostering one of the most talented pitchers on the slate. So to recap, the top 3 tournament stacks on DraftKings: number 3, the Washington Nationals; number 2, the Toronto Blue Jays; number 1, the Boston Red Sox; and the top 3 tournament pitchers on DraftKings: number 3, Framber Valdez; number 2, Nathan Evalde; and number 1, Walker Bueller.